Hey, what's up all of you beautiful subscribers? Welcome back to the Chapple Show. So we got another billionaire investing strategy for you that we're going to cover today. So today we're going to talk about Charlie Munger's investing strategy. So who is he? Well, he is the right-hand man to Warren Buffett. Charlie Munger himself is a billionaire, but he's the right-hand man to Warren Buffett, and they've been partners for decades and decades and decades. And obviously, they built a pretty good company named Berkshire Hathaway. So we're going to talk about Charlie Munger's investing strategies, some of his tips, entrepreneurship tips, his mindset tips, and so on. So let's get started here with number one. So what is one of the very first tips that he would give to you before investing in anything? And that is understand everything. I would put this in all caps, but there's no room here. Understand everything about your investment before investing in it. And so, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they're obviously value investors. So before they make any giant investment, they want to know everything there is to know about the company. And this is how they both are. So Charlie Munger specifically, he digging into all their financials, going to the offices, meeting their employees, trying to see what their company culture is like before investing in the company. Doing 10 times more due diligence than any other investor would before buying a company or investing in the company. That is something key that Charlie Munger talks about. That's probably one of the most important things you can do in investing, is just understand everything there is to know about the company you're investing in. So how does that apply to you? If you're a penny stock trader, you don't really know anything about the company for the most part. You maybe glance at a chart, maybe glance a little bit about the company, maybe take 10 minutes looking at what the company actually does. And then you just buy it. You buy the stock and hopefully it goes up 50% in one day. So if you're a penny stock trader, this does not apply to you whatsoever. But if you're an investor like me, you guys know me. When I look at a stock, I like to know, I already have some background information on the company because, usually I'm pretty good at keeping up to date with certain companies. I like some background information on the company. I like to look at their financials. I like to look at their PE ratios, their charts over the past 5 years. I'll spend hours looking at stocks before I even make an investment. I like to understand a lot about the company before I invest in them. But Charlie, for me, I might invest an hour of my time, 2 hours of my time digging into a company's earnings reports. Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, they can do that for months, 6 months sometimes, a year sometimes before investing in a company. And so they use that time to understand everything there is to know about the company. And then eventually, once they invest in it, they like to, obviously you can't do this if you're investing on your own, but they like to find ways where they can improve the company's balance sheet and the profit sheet and the bottom line so that in the long run the company will be better than it was before they invested. But you can't really apply that to you guys, because if you were to buy a stock, obviously you guys cannot take control of the company if you're investing $5,000 in Apple. So we're going to move on here to number two. So we're going to move on to some mindset stuff. We're going to talk about more investing in entrepreneurship as we move along here. But we're going to talk about some mindset stuff. And one of his tips is always keep learning. Always keep learning. So again, this is a trait. I talk about this in the Wealth Accelerator program, is that if there is a single common trait amongst all billionaires and all successful people, it is the fact that they all keep learning. I swear, they all keep reading books, nonfiction books. They all keep keeping up to date on new trends. They keep learning all the time. When they're not physically working and calling clients and doing their actual job and working, they're learning. And that's the most important. I'm learning how to code, guys. I'm learning how to code, and I'm already at a second year university level of coding right now. And I've been doing this for 4 weeks. Or 3 weeks right now. All right, I'm putting all of my time into that right now. And so I'm learning. I could have just paid someone else who has already learned how to do coding and paid them, and maybe they could have built the website for me. Who really knows? But I was thinking about this, one of the common traits that all entrepreneurs have is that when they have a problem, they learn how to solve it themselves. All right, sometimes they need help, yes, that's true, but they always keep learning. They always keep learning so that even if a future problem were to come along, they can solve it themselves. Always keep learning. So whether it's learning new business strategies like you guys are listening to right now, whether it's learning what is up to date in what market is hot right now, what sector is hot right now, learning what the economy is like in China. All right, learning how to play guitar even though that doesn't apply to business. Like learning skills all the time is a common trait amongst any wealthy person, especially billionaires. So always keep learning. That is something that Charlie Munger always recommends. So we're going to move on to number 3 here, which is, I mean, this is kind of funny. Find a partner. Now, this is kind of, I won't write this here, the rest of it, but find a partner who complements your weaknesses. A partner who complements your weaknesses. So obviously, Warren Buffett says like they kind of have a similar investing strategy, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, but where Warren Buffett is weak, Charlie Munger is strong, and it's vice versa. All right. One of them, I forget which one. One of them always says one of them is more practical, one of them is more of a gut feel, but they complement each other. So when you are starting a business, especially, if you cannot do everything yourself, find a partner that complements your weaknesses. All right. So if you are terrible, maybe you're really, really, really good at coding and web development, find the marketing side. Find the marketing side, find the sales side if you have the money and if you want to give up equity. All right. So finding a good partner who complements your weaknesses, this applies in life too. I mean, even in just marriage and relationships and stuff too. I mean, it's really terrible. I mean, trust me, I've done this before. When you have a partner that is really good at the same stuff that you are, or likes the exact same stuff that you do, that sucks. It gets boring. It gets boring after a long time. And when, if you guys have certain problems a certain problem that neither of you are good at, I mean, neither of you can solve it, and it really sucks sometimes. So finding a partner that complements your weaknesses, kind of like the yin and the yang, or finding not the opposites attract, because that's not true, but finding a partner that, your grand visions are the same, but your individual differences, in skill sets or in dreams or whatever, the small individual differences, very different. I think that's kind of the dream partner, especially in business. So we're going to move on here to number 4, which is number 2. Number 4 is number 2, literally. That's what I'm writing. So number 4 is number 2. Why do I write that? Is because he always talks about how it's okay to be a number 2 in a company. And this is something I talk about sometimes, but I always say if you're watching this, you're probably a number 1 in the company. If you want this kind of mindset, you want to learn how to start a business, but it's okay to be a number 2. Charlie Munger is a number 2 at the company, and he's not even the second richest person in Berkshire Hathaway. But he's the number 2 at the company. He's worth $1 billion. He's super successful. There's actually about 2 or 3 people in the company that I think are wealthier than him, because they either bought more stock or get paid more, or whatever it is. I think one's name is Walter Scott Jr. or something along those lines. I don't know. But being a number 2 is okay. And this is something Gary Vee talks about a lot, is that, your skill set, even if you think you're number 1, your skill set might be more towards a number 2. So you either grow and become a number 1, you become a good example of this is actually Bill Gates. Bill Gates, do you think that he started out as, the typical head of a company? I mean, he knew how to code. That was his major skill set. After a long time, he learned the business side of it. It took him years. After a few more years, he learned how to speak a little bit better publicly. He learned more future like how to expand and how to sell stuff better. All right? He didn't learn that all at once. Originally, he was probably a better number 2 at the company. He was the Steve Wozniak. Right? Steve Wozniak's the perfect example of a number 2 at a company, even though he's the most important in my mind. He was the number 2 at Apple for a long time. Technically, in my mind, he's number 1. Technically, he was a co-founder, so technically he's tied for number 1. But everyone thinks that Steve Jobs was the number 1 at the company, Steve Wozniak was the number 2, and that's okay. Steve Wozniak was completely okay with that. He was vital. Without Steve Wozniak, there's no Apple. All right? And being the number 2 at a company, being a $300 million net worth individual that's a number 2 is better than being a $100,000 net worth individual at number 1. So being number 2 is okay. We're going to move on here to, let's see. Oh yeah, this is, never feel sorry for yourself. Never feel sorry for yourself. So he kind of has this quote here, never feel sorry for yourself, because no one else is going to feel sorry for you, for the most part. I mean, the quote here is 90% of people don't care about your problems, and the other 10% are glad that you have them. So never feel sorry for yourself. I know this is kind of something where I know a lot of people that are really down. They're like, oh, it's easy for you to say, Jack, you're doing so well right now, making a lot of money, you're working for yourself. I mean, I've always had this mindset. Always. And this is a common trait amongst successful people too, is that even when you're down on yourself, you keep moving forward. When you're down and you're in the dumps, you keep moving forward. You don't just stop and be like, oh, look, my life sucks. Do what you can and make your life better. I mean, this is something I talk about. I know this is a touchy subject I mentioned a fair bit, but there are a lot of protests completely understandable, like the one in Venezuela that's going on right now. There was years ago in Egypt. There's lots of protests I completely agree with. Go out there and protest, voice your opinion. But there are certain protests where, like Occupy Wall Street was kind of one that I understood it, but it's not fixing your problem. You lost your job, you need money. I mean, go out there and spend those 16 hours a day that you're spending on occupying Wall Street and go try to find a job or start a business. I know it's kind of a rude thing to say, because I understand why people are protesting. I know I might get a lot of dislikes for this, but I mean, if you want to better your own life, sure, in the grand scheme, sure, if one extra protester, like who really knows if that'll make a difference. But if you want to better your life and you're complaining about not having a job or not having enough money, go out there and spend all of your time trying to make money or try to get a job. I think that's the better solution to sitting outside and getting mad at the 10 bankers that crashed the world, even though they don't really care at the end of the day. If you want to change the world, you want to change the economic system, build a giant company, pay all of your employees $70,000, and make everyone's lives better that way. I know that's kind of a whole different tangent I'm going on here, but never feel sorry for yourself. I mean, when my dad became fully paralyzed when I was 14, it didn't really affect me too much. I mean, it affected me as a person. Obviously, it's helped me grow up really fast. But in terms of I was sad for a day, and then it's okay, well, this is life now. You got to move forward. I don't really mourn too much. Again, when my dog died, I know these are really touchy subjects. When my dog died, I don't really get too sad. I'm like, okay, this really sucks. And then you just kind of move on. And you can't just get stuck in this rut. I talked about this in a video a few days ago, maybe 4 or 5 days ago when you see this, is that there are so many people that when something bad happens, when you have a breakup, when you get dumped, that's a really best example. When you get dumped or you go through a divorce or your parents split up, you get stuck. And all you want to do all day is sit on the couch and eat Cheetos and have Game of Thrones marathons, which is, that's kind of sick. But I mean, Game of Thrones marathons, who's going to complain about that? But what I'm trying to say here is that people get stuck, and they get stuck for a day, and then it's a week, and then it's a month, and then they get out of shape and sad, and their mindset's completely changed, and 6 months go by, and then a year goes by. Then all of a sudden, 5 years go by, and your life is disappearing, and you're not living the life you want to live. You get stuck. So because you feel sorry for yourself and you feel like I'm not ready to move on. You know how long it took me to get over my breakup when I was at the most vulnerable time of my entire life? When I got dumped, double organ failure, I was having surgery and biopsies and all that stuff. Just got out of the hospital 24 hours ago. I got dumped by my girlfriend of 3 years, 3.5 years at the time, whatever it was. I was sad for a day. All right, technically 6 waking hours, and then I moved on. And then all of a sudden, there's actually this song called When It Rains, It Pours. But it's about how when this guy got dumped, and then right after he got dumped, all these amazing things start happening to him. So for me, that was kind of a good description of what happened to me. I mean, I got dumped, then literally the next day or two, I got my first positive health reports in the past 4 months. All my organs started recovering, and eventually everything started getting better. I was able to walk and run again and started to work out again. And I mean, good things happen when you have a positive mindset about bad situations. Good things will happen. So I spent too much time at this point here, but we're gonna move on here to number 6. Number 6 is we're going to talk about you can't catch all the good investments. Can't catch all the good. So again, this is kind of along the lines of like Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, they admit that they missed a few boats like Google and Facebook and all those giant companies, those giant investments. And but here's the deal is that you can't catch all the good ones, but you only really have to be right once or a few times in order to be a successful investor. And as long as you don't miss, like again, that's really summarizes that point, guys, is that you could fail 1 billion times, but or not 1 billion, but not literally, but if you fail like 50 times, you have 50 bad investments where you lose $100 a piece or $500 a piece or $1,000 a piece, you lose thousands of dollars. But all of a sudden you bet on Amazon in 1997, you put $500 in there and you have a 70,000% return on investment or whatever the number was, you're laughing. I mean, think about, was it 70, what's the return on investment? I think it's like, not 70,000, it's like 7,000 or something like that. 7,000% return on investment. You just have to be right once. This applies for business and investing. If you're right once, it makes up for a lot of your losses, if not all of them. Okay, so we're going to move on here to the last point, which is don't wait. Now, Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, they are patient investors. This doesn't apply to stock market investing. This applies to life. And there's this kind of quote, if you have something you want to do with your life, if you have something you want to accomplish, if you want to become a billionaire, okay, you want to become a multimillionaire, whatever it is, don't wait until you're 90. There's no perfect time. I actually just kind of tweeted this out about how there's no perfect time to start. If you want something done in your life, start now. Don't wait around until you're 90 and you realize your life just flown by and you can't do anything about it. Start today. Don't wait. And I think that's a good way to close this video out. So I think I'd like to thank you very much for watching. Feel free to check out my stock market or wealth accelerator program in the link below. I have my portfolio on there, teach you how to set up your stock market account. I teach you how to build a business and all those things. So check those out in the link down below. I'd like to thank you very much for watching. You're all very beautiful people, and I'll see you guys in the next video.